Hello, welcome to Andertons TV. My name is Jack Duxbury, and coming from Texas in the US of A, we have the rather lovely
Ed Diaz. Hi, everybody.
Ed, my man. Firstly, we've got a couple of videos out with Ed at the moment, and we're generally talking about the Phantom and the updates that have happened since I last looked at one. In this video, we're going to touch specifically on sampling, right?
Absolutely. We're going to go through various aspects of sampling. But real quick, Jack, I wanted to go over, in the first video, I was so excited. I just talk. But then I always forget different things that are part of the update, and I always get in trouble. So real quickly, I'm going to go over them. Yeah. Did you not get the memo, Ed? I'm like, yeah, I just get, woo. Okay, so... which Jack, is that a bad thing about synthesizers and keyboards to get like woo? It's not a bad thing. It's just fun.
Embrace it.
So real quick, let me tell you about some of the additional features. We're going to go over sampling and multi-sampling today, a little bit more intensive, but let me tell you some of the other things we have. If we were to look right here inside, like say a scene, and I pick a song, we added some new things. So if you go into your pattern area, and if you hit edit, we have a piano roll, but now we have a microscope, and we can go in there and really go in there and adjust, create different parameters, bring that in there. And then also, if we go back to edit in the piano roll, we can do more things in here too. So we can really get in there and we've added an automation feature to the piano roll edit too. So this is cool. I talked about markers and scene swaps with the scene chains, which is awesome. Also, we added, if we were to go into here, into the master effects, we added something called a total FX. And so what that means, you can choose any of the number of effects inside the Phantom and put them globally to that particular scene. And so you can have that if you want it and put it in there. I personally will put it a button here so I can turn it on and off if I want to just, like a turbo boost. Yeah, I can just go ahead and do that right there. Also, we have a zone out function. So if I go ahead and hit shift and hit the parameter over here, I can go ahead and determine what outputs the different Phantom zones go to if I wanted to real quick. So I can have my main outs for my main sounds. I can have some sub outs for my different other sounds, like over USB. I can have stuff go to the analog filter, whatever insert effects, just all right here. Very nice and quick and easy. Also, last thing, which is kind of a cool thing, if we go into menu utility, I can come into here and now I can have different wallpapers and, so different wallpapers on the Phantom.
That's why yours looks so fly.
Yeah. And the cool thing, I like the space. Let me put the space on. Put that back.
Yeah, that is good.
I like that one. So the cool thing about that, let me wipe this down, is that, the rumor is we're going to have it where you can bring in your own wallpaper. So we'll see what happens with that. I kind of shudder to think what Jack is going to put on his Phantom as his wallpaper.
I've just put the space one on. I've just copied you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the space one. So those are some of the main features in there. But the big feature that everybody wants to talk about today, Jack, is lettuce. No, I'm just joking. We're going to talk about Phantom. I'm doing it again, Jack. Okay. What is it? Focus. All right. Focus. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about sampling. Okay. So first off, Jack, do you have any questions about sampling before we start getting into it? What are your first experiences with sampling? How do you use sampling?
First one for me was one of the old Ensonics.
Oh, yeah.
An ASR. Yeah, my dad had an ASR. And so I think of it as grabbing something, but I always wanted to grab a note and then I wanted to play that polyphonically. I always liked polyphonic samples because I didn't grow up playing hip-hop. I wasn't looking for things and changing the pitch.
Yeah.
I was looking to create playable instruments for me.
And cool. So let's go over some of that right now. We're going to start going into that. So first off, if I look into my Phantom, and let me make it so Jack can see exactly what I'm doing, and they'll edit it up for you guys. So check this out. I'm going to go in, and I can go ahead and just hit sampling. And right here, the Phantom lets me know, well, what do you want? It's the sampling menu. What kind of sample are you hungry for, Jack? So we can say, I want to sample directly to a pad. If I wanted to do that, I'm going to sample to the keyboard, which is probably what Jack and I are going to do, it sounds like. If I want to just have a sample session and just sample to the storage, I can do that. maybe I already have samples and I want to go ahead and take them from storage to the pad, from storage to the keyboard, or for multi-sampling. So that one gets a lot of fun too, and that could be its own video by itself. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do. But I think for Jack, we're gonna go to keyboard. So Jack, do you have anything specific in mind you want to sample? We can do that now?
Well, I did. All I was asked was to have something, that we wanted to sample, and to keep it on Roland, I grabbed the SE02 because I just haven't spent a lot of time with it. And this idea in my head of taking maybe a pretty plain monophonic patch, sampling that in, and then being able to play some chords with it, and then maybe I wanted to hear what the filter was like.
Okay.
Because sometimes when I've done it before, I often capture quite a bright sound, and then I use the other. I use the OP1 a lot by Teenage Engineering.
Yeah.
And I do that. I filter it down afterwards. So I'd love to see if I can do that.
Okay, cool. So now, for a lot of you out there, and for Jack, and even for myself, sometimes we have stuff in our studio that we love having it, but I don't necessarily want to take it out to a gig, okay? Because maybe my smaller units can get damaged or in the backpack or left or whatever, and I just don't want to deal with that. So having the ability to sample and create a sample in the Phantom is something really great to do. So first thing I would do, and I'll switch over, first thing I would probably do, Jack, is I'd probably go to keyboard, sampling to keyboard, and I would select that. Mm-hmm. And once that screen loads up, you're going to notice we have some choices here. On the left side, it says sampling mode, and right here we have choices of, do we want to sample the keyboard plus the input of the Phantom? Do we want to sample just the keyboard of the Phantom, or we want to sample the input? Well, in our situation, if we're sampling from outboard gear, I'd probably go from the input. That's what we're going to sample today. So great. Okay. And then the next one is like, well, what format are you going to do? Is it going to be a stereo? So if it's or mono. So if you have the SEO2 plugged into both of the inputs of the Phantom, I'd probably go stereo. So that way, that's what you're sampling, both of those inputs. Or if you're just sampling one of them, you can go mono. So whichever you want. So I'm going to just put stereo. I'm not doing any sampling today, but Jack is going to do it. So we're going to get him up and going. And then we can choose loop mode. Okay, inside the loop mode, Jack, my Apple Pencil doesn't work with my Phantom. What's the problem? All right, so
I was thinking how balling you are with the pencil. I'm like, oh, no,
check this out. All right, so we can have, here's where we can tell the sample how we want it to move. So forward is just going to keep it looping. One shot is just going to, play it one time and stop. Reverse, which could be totally interesting. That could be, you could take something just completely like wild and just kind of have fun, or reverse one. So for our example, I'm probably going to do a one shot. So let's do a one shot in here. So that's cool. And then we get to decide, okay, what's the original key? So you need to decide what note are you going to sample. What's in there. So if you did C4 or whatever, and we'll probably just do a C4, just do a C. That's fine. And then we could tell it to save to the internal storage, which is probably what you're going to do, and then automatically assign to the keyboard. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. And granted, everybody, there's a little bit of setup, but the thing is, once you understand what each of these options does, it's not bad. You're like, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this, and you're really.
It can't be easier than that.
No,
I've never seen.
It's fun.
And when it's not got those options, you want those options.
Yeah.
Like when I'm on the OP1, I don't have those choices. It's very, there's some very quick sampling devices, but like you said, that reverse one, that tweaked my interest, because I'm like, oh, it'd be nice for a pad, to soften the attack. It saves me having to think about.
Oh, well,
I don't know.
You could sample a piano or sample some kind of motion type of synth sound, and you sample it, but in reverse, it's a completely different sound. And then, like you're saying, once you throw in some filtering afterwards, what is this?
And baking that in up front is really cool instead of having to do it later, I think.
Absolutely. Cool. So the next thing we're going to get into now is auto trigger. I love auto trigger because I don't want to have to play the sound and press start. Okay. No. So we're going to go ahead and have on auto trigger. And what's happening, the Phantom's like, okay, I'm waiting for the input signal. The Phantom has different trigger levels of, 0 to 15. It defaults at 5, which I've never really adjusted it. It's fine. And so let's take off auto trigger first, Jack. Let's unselect that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's make sure you have your SEO2 hooked in. Make sure it's all going. You got your one patch.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's try this. What's note? Are you going to do a C4 or something in there?
I'll do the middle C on here, which is going to be C4. C4, isn't it?
I think so. Yes, on the Phantoms. All right, so let's put on auto trigger, and once you play that note, the Phantom's going to start sampling, and then you're just going to press stop when you're ready. So give it a nice long tone, maybe 2 to 3 beats or whatever. And
this is so exciting. Yes, I've got it.
Okay, you
preview. Got it.
Okay, great. And now just you should be able to play the tone. It should have showed us where we were gonna destination. We're gonna do destination.
Okay.
So let's see.
Okay, and then it's doing a bit of working. Step 2, working.
So now it should be throwing that sample that you just did, to saving it and throw it to all the keys, and we'll see what we get.
It's getting there. 79%. It's cool.
It's getting there. Now, everybody just know you're going to make mistakes. The first time you do this, it's a learning process. So don't get discouraged. And I say this because all of us that are in synthesizers, we're going to make mistakes and be like, instead of getting mad, just kind of like, okay, let me see what I did. Because even myself, and I don't know about Jack, but I know myself, I make a bunch of bonehead mistakes all the time. and then I got to step back and like, oh, okay.
That's so beautiful. This is a important thing to remember. I'm always doing it with my father and trying to remind him of. He used to have DX7s and be programming that, and I'm like, these new processes. Sometimes we expect, like when I first did that, I took my hands off the keyboard and I expect it all to be automatic.
Yeah.
But we still have to just learn a few key things, just a tiny. And they take time to master.
Yeah, so. They take time. And then, what I tell people sometimes, like, well, it should be easier. I'm like, no, now you're stepping into the big boy part of synthesizers. Okay, so that's why I tell them, well, that's why pros get paid what they get paid, because they've already done their homework. Okay, so.
And they've made choices and made choices.
Yeah.
So let's see if this is working. There we go, yeah. So I've got a bit of a delay at the beginning, so I probably want to trim it.
You probably want to trim it, which would be pretty easy on there. Let me see, on there.
Start point.
Yeah, absolutely. You go in there and just find that start point. Absolutely. And you can zoom in vertically or horizontally and just make...
How do I do that? Zoom, yeah. Zoom in.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, on the knobs. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is cool. Wow. Perfect.
Okay.
Unbelievable. Great. Yeah, it's in there.
Hold on one second, Jack. So do you have an overhead camera so people can see the screen? No.
Yes, we do, yeah.
Okay, cool. So just as a recap, just so everybody can see the screen that Jack's doing, I just want to make sure. Yeah, when you go in, and I just threw a sample in here that I did previous. Boom, boom, boom. I was just having fun making a boom sound for a bass drum. Yeah, you can actually go in here and you can adjust the horizontal view and the vertical view, so you can really get down and deep in there when you want to get into editing the start point or the end point. Why try and edit the start point when it's like this? And I'm like, well, I can't see. Zoom in so you can see exactly where that sample starts. Or if you want to, on the very end point, you want to go in there and make some adjustments to the ending, you can do that. So that makes it a lot of fun. So,
definitely. I'm very impressed by this.
Yeah. And then now check this.
It's nice doing it with the knobs, like MPC style. It's actually the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
Incrementally, I think.
Absolutely. And I love the zoom, so I can really get in there. And then check it out. If you go ahead and press the sample utility button on the top right.
Yes.
Okay, you have that sample that you trimmed off that's waste, but it's still there. Well, go ahead and press the truncate button, and you get rid of what I call the fat of the sample. You're like, I'm never going to use that part of the sample. So I'll hit that truncate button, and it'll say sample truncate. Are you sure? And this is just an old school Roland thing, just make it, are you sure you know what you're doing? So yeah, I'm sure. Cut off that. So now I have a clean edited sample. And if I wanted to go through one more, Jack, I could go ahead and also hit that sample utility button again, and I can hit normalize. So that way I make sure my samples, it might be a little bit soft. Maybe I brought it in too soft or too loud. You hit normalize and it'll bring it in so that way your samples match, in there. All right, Jack, so you just did it. That was pretty easy. Now, the SEO2 is a mono synth, Jack, so why would you want a mono synth into the Phantom?
Because my dream is always, and the only time I've ever done this before, is I've sampled mono synths so I could play them polyphonically.
So did that happen? Were we able to do that
Let's see. Exactly.
Awesome.
Killer.
And then let's go ahead and have some more fun, Jack. And let's start messing with the filter. You have the filter on that side. Start playing with that.
Okay, I'm going to just twist the filter. Here's the polyphonic patch we've got. And then I'm going to filter it down.
Wow, nice.
That's cool. Filter type, I love it. Look, all these different variations. I'm just see if I get a muted pad thing going. Killer. That's what I want.
Yeah, and how cool is that? So from that one sample that you just did one note. You're able to either have it perform as a polyphonic kind of supersaw kind of thing. You could go ahead and with the filtering, you can make another tone that's more of like a paddish kind of thing. You could do another filter and then crank the resonance, and now you have like a nasty, dirty lead.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all from that one sampled waveform.
An analog one as well,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so cool.
Yeah,
so cool.
So crazy. And then, of course, since the Phantom can layer up to 16 different ways, you could throw in some other sounds and just really supplement that tone and just go nuts.
Well, having just the raw, I've done that on my other keyboards. I'd often have samples of the raw waveform.
Yeah.
I always had a Jupiter 8 waveform, and then I would use my Rompler to kind of build the Jupiter 8 of my dreams.
Oh, absolutely. And then, once you go ahead and you start stacking, maybe you have this particular waveform at the correct tuning, but you take the other ones and you adjust the fine tuning of them and kind of make them out and a little bit of spreading in there, and you can just have so much fun. I love doing that. I rarely play just one tone. I just like mixing and matching and then adjusting the fine tuning. So like a analog synthesizer, to kind of simulate the drift a little bit. Mm-hmm. That spread. Yeah, it's so much fun.
So that what we just did there is that came about in 2.0, or has that been around for a bit?
That one came about in 2.0, but what really came about was I think we could do that. No, it did come about because we were able to do that to the pads, but now we can actually throw stuff to the keys.
Oh, right.
Also, since
magic.
You sampled that waveform, let me see if I go ahead and show you. If I wanted to, let's say I take, I'll come into my Phantom here, and I'll go into a tone edit, and I go to a tone initialize. So there's technically no real tone in here. So I'll come into here and I'll say oscillator type. And we've taken that sample, it's now PCM technically. We can come into here and say oscillator parameter, and it's saying, well, where do you want to look for? Well, if I come into here, now I can actually use that sample. I can say choose from my samples, and I can use them as a waveform, as we would do with saws, sines, PCMs, whatever. And now that can be a part of the 4 partials that I use to make a tone. So for all my mad scientists out there, you can really get crazy. And if we go into, say, a multi-sample, instead of using the samples, I can actually create a multi-sample. So I can have a whole bunch of things sampled and layered across the key bed, and I can use them not as a tone, but as a waveform, and just choose what I want and just kind of go in there and just keep building. So this is really cool, Jack. While we're on this, let me show this, because the thing about the Phantom, it's so powerful as far as like all the waveforms that are in there, but now that we've added sample waveforms that you choose and create, and multi-sample waveforms that you choose and create. But look what's here. Inside the wave group, you can choose the internal waveforms. You can choose all from the EXZs in here, all the expansions. So as far as waveforms that are available for you in the Phantom, the combination is pretty limitless. You know, it's pretty wild, and that's just one oscillator type. Because look, this is just in the PCM. We have the virtual analog PCM super. You know, we have a lot of different options in there. So for my people that are into creating synthesizer sounds and creating tones and new kind of experimental kind of things, the Phantom is, if once you start digging, it's not going to let you down. There's a lot in there.
Well, yeah, the more it sinks in, I can see why Max, our beautiful European friend, was so excited that day he came in about Zencore, and I was guilty of just trying to, it was all a lot to take in.
Oh, yeah.
And do the demo, but again, he was excited, I remember on that day, of it as a synthesizer. He was like, yeah, but Jack, the Zencore means it's the class-leading synthesizer as well. And sometimes I think we forget of workstations that they're not just there for doing loads of sounds whilst playing a Michael Jackson tune. They can go to other territory. And that recording thing you showed with the Zoom, if you really don't want to use a computer, all these doorless people, I'm like, this still represents a great unit for them.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, you're right. We look at workstations and we think it's all about, you know, pianos or playing with a variety band and all this stuff. But if you really want to get into deep sound design, the Phantom and the Roland sound engines really allow you to do that. You know, there's other keyboards out there where getting into the deep oscillator levels and actually bringing in your own samples or multi-samples, it's kind of locked out or very limited. Whereas the Phantom is like, okay, what do you want to do? It's up to you. We can either start off, and what I always suggest to people, if you're new,
no modes is such a big thing.
How many times have you been working in the past and you're like, I'm in patch mode. Oh, but I want to layer this. Oh, I need to go to performance mode. But now that patch doesn't sound the same as it did in patch mode, so I got to reassign effects. Well, the Phantom, since it's modeless, not an issue at all. Or we start coming up with this great layer, and it's like, oh, I want to record this. Oh, I'm not in the sequencer mode. Well, with the Phantom, I can be in one mode, just the scene, and I can go from a single tone or patch for us old school guys, a layer. I can go ahead and throw sequencer. Maybe I go ahead and sample into another tone and bring that in. And it's just a lot of fun. There's so many options to this. You know, there's so many options.
Ed, thanks so much for taking me through that. Would you do us the honour? Are you plumbed in there for playing us some music? Because I realise I've just been waffling on.
Oh well. Not really. Let me see.
Not really, but even if we... what I'll do is I'll play a bit. Maybe I'll play us out and you can play us out. And I'll just throw it out to the guys back there at home. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what we're doing, consider subscribing. If you don't, let us know. We'll try and learn from it, won't we, Ed?
Yeah, hit the dislike button twice.
Yeah, man. Well, there's nothing to dislike about you. I mean it, man. Thanks so much for sorting this out. And all the best, guys. See ya.
All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.